They built a runway through my farm. But what they didn't know changed everything. It all began with a simple, almost naive dream, a desire for peace and a place to call my own. For years, I had lived in the hustle and bustle of the city, surrounded by the noise and chaos of a fast-paced life. But there was always a longing for something more, a place where I could breathe, where I could create something lasting. That's when I found the land, the patch of earth that would become the canvas for everything I had imagined. I remember the first time I stepped onto that soil. The air was thick with the smell of fresh earth, and the sky seemed so vast it could swallow me whole. It felt like freedom, pure and untainted. It wasn't much, just a few acres, but it was enough. I could already see it in my mind. A wide open field, rows of crops, a barn, and a small farmhouse. My hands were the first to touch the earth, and every bit of labor I put in felt like a step closer to building a legacy. Over the years, the farm began to take shape. The barn went up, the fences were built, and the crops flourished in the rich soil. It wasn't easy. There were days when the weather didn't cooperate, when the crops failed, or when the machinery broke down, but I kept going. Each hardship was a lesson. Each success was a reminder of why I kept pushing forward. I poured my heart into every inch of that land, and with each passing season, it grew more beautiful. It was mine, and it felt like it was part of me. I often stood at the edge of the field, looking at the land, feeling a deep sense of pride. This wasn't just a farm, it was my sanctuary. A place where I could escape from the world and live out the dream I had fought so hard to build. A place that meant more to me than anything else. And it was all about to change, in ways I never could have imagined. It was a day like any other when the letter arrived. I had been out in the fields, the sun beating down as I worked the land, and I hadn't thought much of it when the postman pulled up. But as soon as I saw the envelope, I knew something wasn't right. It was from the Homeowners Association, and that alone set off an alarm in my mind. I'd heard the whispers around the neighborhood about the HOA's ambitions, but I had always brushed them off. My land, my sanctuary, was far from their reach, or so I thought. I tore open the envelope, and my stomach dropped. The letter was official, and it didn't waste time. The HOA was informing me that they had received approval to build an airport runway through my farm. My first reaction was disbelief. I read the words again and again, hoping they would make sense. But they didn't. How could this be happening? My land was my livelihood, my dream. How could they just take it? The letter wasn't just a notice. It was a demand. They wanted access to my property for construction. The letter even outlined the benefits to the community: better access for everyone, more jobs, economic growth. I couldn't believe what I was reading. There was no consultation, no warning. It felt like a betrayal. I had never agreed to this, nor had anyone asked for my consent. I stood there in the middle of the field, the weight of it all sinking in. The peaceful life I had worked so hard to build, the one that was supposed to be mine forever, was being threatened. It wasn't just a small inconvenience or a minor adjustment. This was the end of everything I had dreamed of. They were taking it all away from me, and I didn't know what to do about it. All I could think was, how could they think they could do this? The days that followed felt like a chess match, every move calculated, every response measured. I knew I had the power to stop the HOA, but it was never going to be easy. They had lawyers, resources, and a community backing them. I had knowledge and a deep sense of justice. At first, I wasn't sure how far I could push this. Could I actually take on the HOA and win? Or would I be crushed by their influence? But as the days passed, I got more confident. I started by digging deeper. Using my position at the FAA, I accessed all kinds of regulations, zoning laws, and construction codes related to airport construction and land use. I knew the legal loopholes, the flaws in their proposal, and where they made mistakes. But it wasn't just about finding mistakes, it was about proving they didn't have the legal right to take my land. I began drafting letters, consulting with experts, and reaching out to city officials. I wasn't just going to fight them head on. I was going to outsmart them. When the HOA finally called a meeting to discuss their plans, I knew it was time. I walked into that room with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose but everything to protect. I was no longer just a farmer, this was my domain. I wasn't just another angry citizen. I was the person who understood the system they had relied on to bulldoze over my dreams. The first move was mine. I started presenting the facts, how their proposal was flawed, how they had overlooked key regulations, and how they were actually violating property rights. The room fell silent. They thought I was just going to be another person in the crowd, easily ignored. But as I spoke, the energy shifted. They could feel the power behind my words. But that was just the beginning. The real twist came when I unveiled the hidden card. As I detailed their mistakes, I dropped the bombshell, my position at the FAA. The shock on their faces was priceless. They hadn't seen it coming. And suddenly, I was the one in control. The legal battle was far from over. But I had put the fear of the system into them. And I wasn't backing down. The moment of truth had arrived. I had pushed every legal button I could, exposed every mistake, and used every bit of my knowledge and power to fight back. But the HOA wasn't backing down. The battle was becoming more intense with each passing day. Tensions were high, and the final decision loomed. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing on me. Would I win? Or was it too late to save my farm? The last board meeting was set. And this time, the stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was personal. It was my dream against their corporate interests. I had already played my best cards. But the HOA wasn't giving up without a fight. I knew I had to make my move. The one that would change everything. Once and for all. I stood there in that room, surrounded by officials, lawyers, and community members. My heart pounding in my chest. The tension was palpable. My mind raced as I prepared to deliver my final blow. But just as I was about to speak, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about stopping the runway. It was about standing up for what was right. About showing the world that one person could make a difference. I wasn't just fighting for my land, I was fighting for every individual who had ever been pushed aside by a system that didn't care. As I spoke, I made it clear that I wasn't going to back down. The FAA regulations, the legal rights, the land, I laid it all out. But this time, I wasn't just presenting facts. I was speaking from the heart. And in that moment, I could see it. The doubt, the fear, the realization that they couldn't bulldoze over me any longer. The decision was made. And while it wasn't the end I had expected, it was the beginning of something new, a fight I had won. Not just for myself, but for the right to stand up and protect what was mine. The battle wasn't over. But I had already won the most important thing. My voice had been heard. If you're ready to see more epic battles like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join me as I take on the system and fight for what's mine. You won't want to miss what's coming next.